Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peace that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome back to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. I get to welcome you to another grandiose episode of the Day with Trae. Really excited for my guest who's in the building, y'all. We got Lora-Ellen McKinney in the building right here in the Black Media Matter studio with me, and I'm so glad she's here. We're going to be learning more about how she's contributing to her family legacy, her authorship, right? The books that she has written and why it's important for her to continue to give in the ways that she does. But I'm also excited that y'all are here. Y'all know, I mean, this is actually the best time, all right, at the top of the show for you to go ahead and share this show with folks who you feel really could benefit from our daily dose of dopeness we give you here on the Day with Trae. Of course, if you can't watch us, we always have you covered because you can listen to us as well anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network in the Day with Trae. You'll find us there. Now, I love talking about the experiences that I get to have and share them with all of you. And so before I get into it with Miss Lora-Ellen here, I got to say that, you know, I was able to experience some of the work of the Washington State Black Legacy Institute. Now, this is an incredible organization that is doing their part to also anchor our historic contributions to the Pacific Northwest region and share the stories of Black people's history here in Washington State. Now, what's beautiful about the work they're doing is I find that so many layers to storytelling and to making sure our history is captured. Of course, I try to do it in this way, right, in this platform, by making sure we have a space and a place for people to be able to come here, share their stories, and we capture that, right? This video format, amazing studio quality. Thank you, Converge Media. And also, it is a continuation of so much work that has happened before my existence. So I loved learning more about the work that they're doing to ensure we understand those ancestors that have been here, those elders, those folks who helped to really pave the path for Black Washingtonians through their own experiences, and many of the historical figures that they are making sure we understand their stories, we know them, and they're being amplified. Many of them went through a lot of different things to build a foundation here to make it, you know, feasible for other families to migrate here after wars and everything else. And it's a beautiful lesson for us to be able to have an anchor institution that we can go to learn more. They also uplifted an amazing resource by the late Quintar Taylor, blackpast.org. And if you do not know this site, I promise you this is one of the largest collections of Black history, digitized Black history ever. And it's beautiful because this is curated by folks who are right here, y'all. And yet this information that they've ensured they've curated is available to everyone. Of course, when we digitize it and get it out there on the interwebs, right, we have the ability to make sure that folks all over the globe can learn from the history and the great achievements and the work and effort that has been poured into building our cities, our towns, our counties, our states, our foundations by the hands of Black folks. And what I love, y'all, I got to share this with you, because what I love the most about all of this is we get to control the narrative. I'm always talking about that. If we don't have these histories available for future generations, if we don't share the great things we're doing, then of course there's a lack in the ethosphere of these stories being there, being inspiring for others, and being a great way to showcase the continued efforts and energy that more and more generations pour into our region. So I'm grateful that I get to be a part of the storytelling, but I'm also grateful for institutions like the Black Legacy Institute that is here to really help make sure we have a pathway to sharing those historic stories. Well, after this short break, y'all, up next, we got Lora-Ellen McKinney in the building. We're going to be talking about all the ways that she continues to not only contribute to her family legacy, but to ensuring that stories are being told through her eyes. Y'all don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
My name's Deontay Damper, and I want to talk to you about something real. Mental health, substance use, alcohol use, things many of us often carry in this community, often in silence. What a lot of people don't know is this: crisis care services in King County are free, and they're available 24/7 for every single one of us. You can call 988 at any time and reach out to trained, compassionate counselors right here in this very region. And we're talking about people who listen and stay with you through the moment to figure out what you need. Now, if you want someone to come to you, they'll send their mobile crisis teams anywhere in King County. These mental health professionals and people with lived experience, not law enforcement, from DESC, YMCA, and the Sound, will show up and support you. And now there's another option. You can walk into one of King County's crisis care centers anytime for urgent mental health and substance use support. Just like you walk into urgent care for a broken arm, but this time it's for your mind and your recovery. No insurance, no appointments, just walk in. The first center is actually open right now in Kirkland, and people are already coming through those doors every day. And more centers are on the way, actually in the comings of years, including Seattle on First Hill, in South King County, on the east side, and one specifically just for our youth. We all know someone who struggles. I have. Maybe you have. Or someone you love. Asking for help can often feel hard, but you're not alone. You have someone to call. Someone who can show up, and now a safe place to go. These services are free, and they're here because communities demanded better. They voted to make it real. The doors are open. Walk in when you need to.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Joining me right now, we got the founder of Cedar River Creative Productions, Miss Lora-Ellen in the building. Hi.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. It's a wonderful day.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here and you were able to take some time out of your schedule to join us today. This is exciting for me because I've learned so much about your contributions, but of course I hear the name McKinney, and I mean, automatically I think Reverend McKinney comes to mind. Mm-hmm. So I want to start with the ways that you are continuing to contribute to the McKinney family legacy that is so well known, not only in the Pacific Northwest, but beyond.
And I thank you for asking the question. This is an important year to ask it. Had my father lived, he would be turning 100 this year on December 28th. And so one of the things that I've been doing this year is asking institutions and archives and museums and fraternities and schools that he attended how they might like to remember him. And so there's a national effort that's been happening since January that is celebrating him in remarkable ways. I will ask anybody anything, and my feelings aren't hurt if you say no, but nobody said no. And so one of the ways that I've been trying to maintain and push forward his legacy is by allowing a lot of people to help me, because what I do understand is that if we don't tell the stories, they die. Mm-hmm. There's no reason for younger generations to necessarily know what they're not taught. Or they may see a picture of him on a wall somewhere, but they don't know who that person is if there's no data that goes along with it. So there are a number of wonderful ways that I think he will be remembered. In fact, the Washington State Black Legacy Institute has a lot of his materials. One of the things that they're going to be doing, or they've started actually, that is a lot of work, but it's a wonderful way to learn, is that they are making digital archives of all kinds of photos. And I had 60, 70,000 photos that I did not know what to do with.
Wow.
Because there are things at the Smithsonian, I hope still, at the Library of Congress, at the Museum of History and Industry here, at the Labor Museum at the University of Washington, at the Cleveland Public Library, at the Seattle Public Library, and a few other places. Well, my father has his own archive at Mercer University, at the American Baptist Historical Institute. His parents have an archive at Case Western Reserve University, so I'm trying to get all of these things connected. So there are specific things that have gone to each of these places. Some of them take documents, there are sermons some places, there are tapes some places, but I had a lot of community photos. People I don't know necessarily, and I did not know what to do with these, and I spoke to Roger Evans, and he said, this is perfect. And of course, if you've got them on the interweb, then people can say, oh, that's Miss Sarah, or that's such and such a picnic. And that will provide another way of understanding not just my father and his legacy, but the community here, and how it looked and grew and developed and changed and erased some portions of us. The picnics look different, the landmarks look different, things disappear. And so that's one of the things that I am doing. I have found some kind of amazing things. There was a box that looked like it was trash, but I don't just push anything in a storage space away. So I started rifling through it, and there was a bunch of, I don't know what on the top. But at the bottom, there was this handwritten document that says, a spiritual autobiography of Samuel Barry McKinney in accordance with the requirements of the Martin Luther King Fellows Program at Colgate Rochester Divinity School.
Wow.
1973. It's like, what is this? I learned a bunch of stuff I didn't know.
Oh, wow.
My father was a musician, not a lot of people knew that, but he had been offered a jazz band contract that he turned down and went to seminary. I didn't know that. I knew that he played while he was in seminary. I knew that he played while he was in the Air Force, but I did not know that whoever this was, Columbia or someplace, offered him this contract to be a band leader for a jazz band, which would have just really upset his mother, who was a professional musician. She was classically trained, and she thought jazz was the devil's music. But so that's one of the things that I'm doing. I'm going to publish this as a way to help support a foundation that I'm starting for him. And so I'm just trying to tell the stories that I know. I'm trying to have other people who have stories that I don't know as well, but that are about him and his contributions, share those. And I'm really not going to rely only on myself, but when we talk about community, it's really essential that, in some of the ways that we talked about at the meeting yesterday, that everyone understands that they have a role. It's not just that we listen to the elders, and we must, and learn from them, but we're creating history as we live. Mm-hmm. And so we have to tell those stories too. I was on a panel at the University of Washington in Richard Conlon, the former city council person's class, about neighborhoods. And I had a presentation, but everybody was so busy looking into their computers. I said, I'm not even going analog. This is just old school. You're going to have to listen and look at me, right? And I asked them what their definition was of home. Like, what is home? Not where, but what? And I got some interesting answers. But then I asked them where, and it was a harder question for them to answer. But the reason that I did those two things was that I wanted these 19 and 20-year-olds to understand that it was their role to ask questions. You ask your grandparents, well, they don't like to talk about the old days. Doesn't matter. Ask your grandmother, if she's the cook, where she got that recipe. Because maybe it was her great-grandmother. That's where my pound cake came from, right? You ask why your grandfather doesn't like to turn left when he drives, or why he wears that sweater all the time or only on special occasions. Because in finding out the answers to those questions, you learn a lot about your family. How did they get here to Seattle? What brought them here? Was it Was it the Great Migration? Are they Chinese and they came to build the railroad and were treated badly? Are they Japanese and were here and had a business and then were interned and lost it? Right. I'm also on the King County Historical Landmark Commission. And the reason that that's important to me is that there's history in our buildings.
Yeah.
There's stories in the soil. There's people built those things with their blood and their sweat. And I understand that buildings can't always last forever, but a portion of them can. Or if this was the first black pharmacy in the city, why isn't that building named for Russell Gideon, who owned the first black pharmacy in the city?
It's stuff like this that I think is so special in terms of storytelling. It can take on so many different forms. And ultimately, I appreciate your energy and passion in owning a piece of that, right? And saying, no, like I've got to make sure that that these connections are being made, not only in terms of your father's legacy, but also for us to be able to learn from in future generations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of so much of historical preservation.
Yeah.
And anchoring those stories in ways that make them easily accessible for Washingtonians and beyond, right? But I also understand too, there is a nature, and it is true. When you talk about young people asking those questions, I was very inquisitive. And so I saw a lot of like gaps, or like, why do we shy away when that topic comes up or when that person comes up, right? And so I started asking those questions of my grandmother before she passed and learned so much more. And I recorded her just sharing stories.
Me too.
It's stuff like that I think we have the ability to do today with modern technology. So I can really appreciate it. But you take some of your experience, your lived experience, and put it in book format too. I want to talk about you being an author and talking about the Baptist tenets. And tell us a bit more about that book that you wrote, that first one, that really is, kind of this culmination of your lived experiences.
I'm a fourth-generation Baptist. And one of the things about being Baptist is that, unlike other faiths where you're just sort of born into them, you have to choose to be Baptist. So my father was a Baptist bigwig. His father was a Baptist bigwig, and then both of his grandfathers were Baptist ministers. One was well known, and the other was a circuit rider. Do you know circuit riders? So circuit riders were preachers in the South, in rural areas, who would get on a horse and ride a circuit to a different church every Sunday.
Wow.
Because there weren't enough preachers to go around. So my father's father's father was, that great-grandfather, was a circuit rider in Georgia. Wow. Rode around and preached the word. But I've always known a lot of Baptist history because I was the inquisitive kid too. I annoyed my parents half to death because I was always asking everything of everybody. And the first years of my life, I actually lived with my grandparents, both sets of grandparents in Cleveland. And so I was around people who were actually quite old, but who had everybody was a storyteller. And I would just ask, where's the most interesting place you've been in those shoes, right? Or, that smells funny when you cook it. Chitlins. Why are you cooking those? What does that mean? Where'd they come from? And when I was thinking about writing something related to faith, it came after writing a lot of other things. Publishing is difficult to do. It always has been. I'm classified as a black female literary writer. That's a very small niche, right? And folks didn't want to fund that. Well, it's sort of Alice Walker and Toni Morrison kind of only. And then you're going to put me in that category, and I got to wait until Oprah finds me, or I'm 102.
Wow.
Right? And so I thought, so what can I write about from a base of knowledge that can be helpful to people? And I was attending a church in Washington, D.C., and one of the elders there came up to me and asked me if I would help her raise, raise funds for a baptismal font. And I said, I will not, which shocked her because I'm speaking to an elder and I'm saying no to this request that she had made of me, knowing that I know how to raise funds. But I said, the reason that I won't is because Baptists don't baptize babies. And I was surprised that she didn't know this. So I sort of teased her a little bit. I said, if you just drop this idea, I won't tell anybody that you're not actually Baptist, that you haven't been baptized Baptist, that you haven't taken a new members class, and that you're probably Episcopalian. She was. She was Episcopalian. So I actually have the book in back of me. So I wrote this book. It's Total Praise and Orientation to Black Baptist Belief and Worship. And it's a small book, but what it does is it answers questions about Black Baptist faith practices and tenets. And people will ask me, well, isn't being a white Baptist the same? It is not. And it is not for several reasons. The largest Baptist denomination is Southern Baptist. They are predominantly white, and they fought the Civil War. They're on the other side. So people will say, oh, you're a Southern Baptist, you, Lora-Ellen. Well, no, I'm not. Like most black folks in this country, I have people who were from the South, but they were National Baptists or American Baptists in the South. So I am not a Southern Baptist, and because I believe in freedom. And so we answer those kinds of questions in this book, and I've written 6 or 7 books about Black faith beliefs that I think have been helpful to people. And then God gave me permission to write other things.
Yeah.
At a certain point. And so I've got a film about my relationship with my mother that's being walked around Hollywood at the moment. Don't know what's going to happen with that. I have a television pilot about a woman of a certain age who is an artist she's a biracial artist who plays classical piano, and she knows that the reason that people are comfortable with her is that she is not dark. But she's tired of playing old, dead, white men's music, and so she's working on ways to get Black classical music pushed forward. And so we'll see what happens with that. But I'm writing a lot of other kinds of things, and I've always written poetry since I was 5, 6 years old, and I continue to do fun things with that. Music and poetry come into my head whole. I don't understand it, but I will just get a poem or a song or a prayer, and I've been able to do some fun things with it. I had a project called the Poetry and Painting Project that happened a while ago now, in 2022. And I just cold called a bunch of artists, dancers, painters, musicians of different kinds, textile artists, painters, and I said, most of them, you don't know me, you have no idea that I'm a poet, but I'm going to send you something, and if you like it, I would like you to make a piece of original art for it. And they did, we had this 8-hour show. That was wonderfully done, and it was interactive. We sang songs, people brought the most amazing art. And the importance of that for me is that what art is a way to communicate what's happening in communities. It forwards social change in a way that's subtle and comfortable enough usually for people to accept it. I mean, it can be radical, but it's easier than watching the news, right? And so we had a community conversation about George Floyd in a quilt, right? About Sojourner Truth, about a woman who had been a maid and who was dying and wanted her life and the pain in her body to mean more than what had been lost through her, her unaccepted gifts to a family that wasn't her own. And
My goodness.
yeah,
I mean, this is what I thank you, because there's so much that you are giving and sharing from those. I love to call them divine downloads, right?
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how they come into your brain that way. But it's clear that your creativity abounds, and it's a beautiful thing because you're intentional about what you're creating and how it can make an impact for someone else, which I have this thing in my head where I'm like, well, there are creators who create for themselves.
Yeah.
And, sure, if it moves you, great. But like, I had to get this out for myself. There are creators who create specifically for the next generation, who are like, this may not hit, in my time, but in the future, I got to get this out for the future for it to hit then. It's too forward thinking, maybe now for my time. And then there are folks who are very fluid with it, that can understand the past, the present, the future, and create in a sense of fluidity that really interweaves all of them. So I see you in that fluid state.
yeah, I appreciate that, and I accept that. I think that's right, because the moments that we live in aren't static.
Right.
Right? And if we're honest about how we are living our lives or what we're experiencing, we are always carrying our ancestors with us. We have to know who they are. We have to know what they contributed that was wonderful. We have to know who the knuckleheads were. We have to learn from our errors. We're not good at that at the moment. But we have to learn from our errors so that we can have peace in the present and we can plan for a future that's not something that we can know, but we can set the seeds that can blossom. If we have kids who are curious like us, or college students who are willing to ask their grandparents questions that might make them uncomfortable, if the only way that they can share in their family is through the mashed potatoes that have mustard in them,
Yeah.
there's a story there. They ran into somebody German along the way. What happened, right? How'd that happen? Those are things that allow us to know who we are in a deeper way. One of the problems that kids have today is that they're lonely and disconnected because their life is in their
Digitized.
digital, things. And they will sit next to each other and not talk to one another because they haven't learned, and they are lonely. It is harder to be lonely if you know who you are. If the ancestors are speaking to you, if you know when you get up in the morning that the face that you are wearing belonged to your great-grandmother. If you know that the diabetes that you have to fight against is something that runs through your family and you can figure out the why. If you learn that the brogans that you like to wear, were something that one of your great-grandmothers also wore, it connects you to something that's much larger than you. And so you don't worry that this kid over here calls you funny looking or doesn't like how smart you are. Those are gifts that the ancestors gave to you. Yeah. Those are things that you can nurture in the present, and once nurtured, they will be gifts to the future. So you must carry all of that. And that's one of the parts of my legacy too. My family was odd in a number of ways. I mean, I grew up with people trying to kill my father, a phone that was tapped by the FBI, people shooting, guns being held on me, just the church being bombed. I mean, wow. It's not a normal upbringing. But the reason that I'm a sane person is because my parents identified and helped me identify my gifts and said, you were 10 years old and 6 feet tall. It looks like you were outgrowing the house. So if we have to buy another roof, we just will, right? So the things that were odd about me to other folks, they just made normal, and that's what we all need. We need to know what our place is, right? We need to know who we are in our families, in our friend groups, in our schools, in our communities, because no matter who you are, you have a gift. One of the ways that I've been trying to work on this a bit through legacy is that in some of the boxes that I found recently, I didn't find them, I knew where they were. I unearthed what was in them, right? I found some things from my mother's parents. So I've been focusing on my father, who has a legacy that people know. And then he came from a family that was like the one that I grew up in. Right? He had a father who actually started out as a sharecropper, whose father was enslaved. So I'm 3 generations from slavery on that side of the family, which is strange, right? I'm much further on all of the other sides of the family. But we know what Wade Hampton McKinney did at Antioch Baptist Church in Cleveland, and my father's mother, Ruth Berry McKinney. They were big figures around the world. My mother's parents were not educated people. They were working class people. What was wonderful about what I found about them was that they were community leaders of the much more recognizable kind, right? Most people don't get big. Most people aren't known around the city, around the country, around the world. That is a more unusual thing. But what I found was that my grandmother had become a nurse during World War II. I had no idea. I lived with her for 4 years when I was a kid, until I went to kindergarten. I had no idea. Wow. And here she is with her nursing diploma and her little white hat. First I thought she was a deaconess, and I looked, nope, that's a nurse, and here's the documents to prove it, right? My grandfather had 30 years worth of commendations from the NAACP and the Urban League. They started street clubs in the neighborhoods where they lived. They were mixed race neighborhoods of people who couldn't do some of the things that, redlining didn't allow them to do some things. So they were Jewish neighborhoods with large black populations, which is also what I grew up in here in Madrona. And so there were conversations. We had a man who had been in the Holocaust who lived on the 3rd floor of our house, right?
Wow.
And he would come and talk to my grandfather about things. And so you see these folks who are putting together a life to help their children, my mother and her brother, advance, who didn't have the same kinds of opportunities, but who contribute to community in the most remarkable ways. And so the Cleveland Public Library is going to be doing an exhibit about them.
Wow.
About everyday contributions.
Well, you're sharing a lot too, and so I want to make sure folks know, because there's a lot of things happening, you said, across the country.
Yes.
In terms of the continuing of legacy. How do folks get tapped in? You got books, you have things that you're doing right now under Cedar River. I want you to look right there and just make sure folks know exactly how to stay connected to all of the great work that you are continuing to uphold and uplift.
For the legacy activities, go to McKinneylegacy.org. It has information about my father, and it has the activities that have happened and links to them and the things that are upcoming. And for my books, my art, my music, my creative efforts, you can go to Lora-Ellen McKinney.com, LORAELLENMCKINNEY.com.
Wow. Miss Lora-Ellen, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank
This
you.
was incredible. And I
Thank
just want to
you.
say, I'm so inspired by all of the energy that you're pouring in and that you continue to pour in. It's so wonderful to hear. We connected, but I had no idea there were so many different layers to all of this. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, and thank you so much for asking me. The thing about being a creative, and also about having to archive and conserve and save information for future generations, is that you just never feel as if you have enough time.
Yeah.
I think I won't be done until 47 years after I die, but I'm trying.
Well, thank you so much. Hey, you're showing us how to at least start the process. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity, and I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Storytellers all, yes?
Oh, yes. Wow, y'all. I'll wrap it up right after this short break. I'm in awe. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
This May, Seattle Opera presents the return of Bizet's celebrated classic, Carmen. A mesmerizing story of obsession, dazzling sets, elaborate costumes, and iconic melodies make Carmen irresistible. Don't miss Carmen, May 2nd through 17th at McCaw Hall. Details at seattleopera.org.
Discover the raw, essential story of Northwest modernism through the Seattle Art Museum's Beyond Mysticism. This exhibition features over 150 pieces celebrating the region's natural beauty and urban life. Get your tickets today at seattleartmuseum.org. We'll see you there.
What's up, Seattle? It's your boy Cuddy here tapping in just to let you know that no matter where the place to be, King County Metro will get you to where you need. It could be a ride to the airport, whether you're taking off or touching down, King County Metro, or a game. So save yourself time with traffic and get into places like Westlake Center, Pike Place Market, or even the waterfront. Rather by light rail or bus, choose King County Metro. It's the only way to go.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. I just can't say enough thanks to my guest today, Miss Lora-Ellen McKinney, for joining me, sharing with us the passion that she has behind continuing family legacy, making sure we are documenting our stories and encouraging others to be curious and creative about how they continue to carry stories forward. Of course, there are many opportunities for y'all to tap into the McKinney legacy, all of the events that are happening. Make sure you go to that website, and if you're looking for more of her creative works, you can head over to Lora-Ellen McKinney.com. Y'all, thank you so much for watching. You know I'm inspired, but she is such a shining example of exactly why we have anchor folks in our communities that are right here doing incredible work. So if you found yourself inspired, I encourage you to contribute in ways that really allow you to be a part of the solution. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, y'all. Peace. Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.